if you look at the popularity rankings in ranked duels and duel links, you quickly find that, well, the most used trap in the entire game is Infinite Impermanence, which is the newest quote-unquote staple trap card that we got in this new Duel Links update, and it just so happens to also be a paywalled card. Yippee! Don't you just love it when Konami puts really good staple cards behind selection boxes, right? Isn't that very cool? Well, fortunately for you guys, I own 3 copies of this card, which means I get to have an opportunity to use this card in rank and see how good it is. So today, I'm gonna share my honest opinions on how good I think this card is currently in Duel Links. And currently I'm in King of Games because I have been grinding right after the release of the new update. And I've been using a deck that uses the 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence that I have gotten. In fact, I played specifically a 20 card version of branded Despia so that I could draw the imperms more often. Well, to be honest, even before I got the imperms, I was playing a 20 card version of Despia just because I like playing a smaller deck size, even though everybody's playing 30 cards when they play Despia. I personally like 20 cards just because I want to draw the Morning Stars more often, and I want to play like more draws, like more search spells to search them, instead of just want to have the Morning Star in my hand, instead of, searching it with something like a banishment. So that when I go second, I can just immediately fusion summon and then blow up the entire field. But, that's not the main focus of today. Let's talk about the Infinite Impermanence that I have in my deck. So I've been using this card the entire time during my grind in King of Games. I played against a lot of different decks. I've played against new decks, old decks, and, well, here are my thoughts of this card. Is this card worth getting because it's paywalled, right? The short answer is no. It's good. Don't get me wrong. It's a good card. Obviously, there's a reason why it's the most used trap card in the entire game. It's good, but it's not a must get. It's you can get away with not playing this card, and let's go deeper and explain what my thoughts on this card are. So, obviously, this card is good, but what I think is the strongest part of this card is not that its effect is really good. Like, we have similar effects like Imperm, like Veiler or Ghost of Mourner. We have those 2 cards already in the game for quite some time. Veiler has been around for almost 2 years. Isn't that crazy? We have Veiler for 2 years, and Imperm is like a slight upgrade of Veiler. Achieves similar things, but what Imperm is good at is the flexibility of this card is what makes this card so good. So not only is it a hand trap, you can use it like a Veiler to negate your opponent's normal summons, for example. When they try to do their combo, you can just negate that immediately, even if you go second. That's a pretty valuable effect to have. Not only that, you can use it as a board breaker. You can use it like a droplet. If you go second and your opponent sets up something like a Masquerade, which is something that you couldn't really stop with Veiler, because they just immediately... Oh, I could just show it in my deck because I'm showing a Despia deck. So they can just make this card with a field spell, right? They can search the field spell with their skill and then immediately fusion summon and make the Tax Dragon. And the thing about Tax Dragon is that you don't stop it with Veiler. Veiler does absolutely nothing against the Tax Dragon because it doesn't really use any effects during their turn. It's more like an interruption or kind of like a hindrance during your own turn, so that you need to use your negates during your own turn to stop it. So Imperm does both. It can act as a hand trap to stop your opponent's normal summons if your opponent is playing a deck that really needs their normal summons to go off, or any kind of like starters. Or you can use it during your own turn to stop something like a Masquerade from using their effects during your turn. So the flexibility is what makes this card so good, because if it's only one or the other, it's not really that important because we already have Valor for that, right? And also it has a bonus effect when it's set to negate a spell trap in the same column, and also it's in the same as Master Duel, where when you activate this card, there's a bright blue column that glows, so it's a lot harder for both you and your opponent to misplay and place spell traps in the same column. So if you play into that, that's kind of your fault. So anyway, so if imperm is so good, why is it not a must get, right? Why isn't everybody playing this card? Well, first of all, it's paywalled, so not everybody could play this card. But even if everybody have free copies of this card, I don't think it's really that important to get imperm at all, because of multiple reasons. The biggest one being that it has plenty of replacements in the game. So let's first look at hand trap, because imperm is a hand trap. And the other hand traps that we got are the most popular ones are Valor, DD Crow, and Nibiru. These are like the three other hand traps that people are playing in this meta, aside from imperm. And as you can see, Valor and DD Crow are seeing more play than imperm. Obviously, one of the reasons being that imperm is a paywall card, but Valor and DD Crow do a lot of things that imperm is trying to do as well. They are all hand traps, and they stop your opponent from doing their combo during your when you go second during their turn. And while imperm is like a direct upgrade of Valor, I mean, if you have both Valor and imperm and you can play, you can choose either one to put in your deck, you most definitely are going to choose imperm just because it is just more flexible Valor. But for cards like DD Crow and Nib, imperm doesn't really replace their roles, right? Because they do different things. DD Crow banishes a card from the graveyard, which is really, really good against Despia. It just completely invalidates their Branded in Red, which is the most powerful card in the entire deck, which allows them to fusion summon at a quick effect speed to board wipe by using a Morningstar as part of the material. So just completely stopping this card is a really, really strong play. Also stops silly FTKs like the Rebecca FTK by you can banish one of their burn spells when they try to recycle them with their Part of Benevolence, and that stops the FTK, for example. And there are a lot of other situations where having a graveyard banish is just better than having an effect negate. So whether or not imperm is a hand trap that you want to use entirely depends on the meta, and the meta is something that will change. So it isn't like a case where imperm is always like the best hand trap that you could be playing. Sometimes it will be DD Crow, sometimes it will be a Nibiru. And those cards aren't paywalled. I mean, DD Crow is a really, really old card. It's probably going to be included in box trips pretty soon because it's released in 2020, 5 years ago. So sooner or later, we're gonna get like DD Crow in as part of the box trip selection, and it's gonna be really, really easy to obtain. So in certain metas, you are going to play DD Crow a lot more than you're going to play something like an imperm or Valor. And same with Nibiru. Nibiru is also really, really strong into some decks. It's not that strong against decks like Despia, but it's a really, really strong option against more combo-heavy decks like Sword Soul. You can just nib the entire board and they end on nothing. So either way, imperm is not really like a must-get hand trap. It's just another hand trap that can get better or worse depending on the meta. But aside from that, let's have a look at its potential as a board breaker, because it can also act as a board breaker. In fact, in my experience of me playing this card in Despia during my climb to King of Games, I used this card a lot more often as a board breaker, then I used it as a hand trap, just because against some decks it's just better to save the imperm as a way to negate your opponent's boss monsters than it is to negate their starters, because a lot of decks can play through a negate. A lot of decks, if you try to imperm them, they have ways to extend past that. And not only that, it turns on some of their skills, like the Sword Soul skill. If you try to imperm their normal summon, it enables them to use the skill to give them a second normal summon. So you might as well just save the imperm to negate their endboard pieces, because otherwise you just give them 3 normal summons. But anyway, if you're using that as a way to stop your opponent's boss monsters, then we have better options. We have Droplet, we have Eclipse. These 2 cards I still think are better than Imperm at doing the job of breaking boards. And Eclipse just flips everything face down. So if your opponent has multiple stuff, it's all gone. And not only that, Eclipse is a lot better if you go first, because it flips stuff face down, and flipping stuff face down is better than negating a monster effect generally. And not only that, it flips down multiple monsters, so it's kind of like a board wipe in terms of like interruptions that you can use against your opponent's monsters. Even though they get flipped face up during the end phase, it doesn't really matter if you get to interrupt their combos and stop them from doing what their deck is trying to do. Droplet is also really good against some decks, a lot better than Imperm against specific decks, like for example Speedroid. They end on multiple big boss monsters, all of them have kind of negation effects. So if you have one Imperm, you can use one Imperm on one of their boss monsters. Sure, you can stop maybe like the monster negate, or make them waste their spell trap negate. Sure, that's fine. You're doing it like a 1-for-1 trade. But if you have a Droplet, you're using one card, you're swapping every single monster that they have. You have the Droplet in your hand, you completely counter the entire board. Same thing with like Sword Soul, for example. They sometimes end with a Dragite, which is a spell trap negate. I don't know if it's showing up here, it's not. But Dragite is a spell trap negate, so if you have an Imperm, all you can do is force them to negate your negate. And I mean, it's still a 1-for-1 trade, it's not bad. I'm not saying that Imperm is not worth playing, but Synchro A, okay. Yeah, Dragite, sometimes they end on discard. So if you have an Imperm, it just forces them to negate your Imperm, and that's it. But if you have a Droplet, you negate both like their Dragite, you negate their Chengying, you negate their Xiao, and all they're left is maybe like the trap that they sometimes will search. And even though you are sending cards to use your Droplet, oftentimes it's worth it just to not let your opponent interrupt your combos, and a lot of cards want to be sent to the graveyard anyway. And you can also chain it to some of your spell activations. You can activate a normal spell, and then you chain the Droplet to send the spell that you're activating to gain value off of the card that you sent. So, and the send isn't even that big of a deal most of the time. So, yeah, and also Droplet also negates monsters that cannot be targeted, because Imperm targets, and Droplet does not, which comes up against stuff like the First Dark Lord, giving you target protection, or like Thespian Comedy, being able to negate effects that target, or like the Chimera card that Cornfield Quartal that negates anything that tries to target their monsters. Well, in those cases, Droplet is just undeniably better. Same with Eclipse. Both of those cards do not target and do their job a lot better at breaking boards. So that pretty much leaves one thing, which is like the pretty cool spell trap negate that the Imperm has when it's set before it's activated. Well, if you play this card in Master Duel, you know it's like pretty easy to play around that. If you use it on like a monster and then your column glows bright blue, if your opponent plays into that bright blue column that's glowing, that's kind of on them, right? And the other way you can use the negate is you can set this card in a column that already has a spell trap, so that when you use it, you negate the thing that's already in the column. But those kind of not very common. I mean, it will come up across a lot of games when you use this card a lot, but I mean, it doesn't come up nearly as often as you would probably think, and not something that I would stress a lot about. So yeah, in conclusion, this card is good, but it's more like a side grade. It's a good replacement for some other things that we already have. It's like a better Veiler, but Veiler isn't even that good a lot of the times. It's good in certain metas, not good in other metas. It's not better than the other breakers that we already have, like Eclipse or Droplet. And sometimes other hand traps beat it, like DD Crow or Nib. What it's good at is being like a very versatile option that hits every deck. It's good as a hand trap and as a breaker. It's good at being both. It's not the best at either. Maybe sometimes it's a good hand trap in certain metas, but in most cases, it's neither the best hand trap nor the best breaker, but it's good at both. And that's what kind of makes this card good in the first place. And even as good as Imperm is, I still think the time where we got Book of Moon paywalled, that was a bigger deal than us getting Imperm paywalled. I remember when we first got Book of Moon in a selection box, that was a huge deal because nothing really does what Book of Moon does. It's both a really strong way of interrupting your opponent, and it's a quick play spell, which means you can use it to stop your opponent even if you go second by flipping their boss monsters face down. Back then, we were still playing stuff like Paleozoic Canadia just to get ourselves a way to flip monsters face down, like Canadia or Floodgate Trap Hole. We were still using these cards just because flipping monsters face down is such a good effect back then. And then we just suddenly get a complete, like a power creeped version of Canadia that does the same thing but as a quick play spell. That's a huge deal. That's a lot bigger of a deal than compared to us getting Imperm in 2025 when we have so many other options that are sometimes better, or at the very least is comparable to what this card is going to do. And it's not like the very big fundamental thing about this card is that it's in a different environment as something like in the TCG, where in such a skill dominant meta, and where in a meta where engine is so much stronger because of the help of skills, having like a single negate is just not very good, because we're not playing in the TCG where if you imperm Snake Eyes Ash, their turn ends. It's not like that. It's people play decks that are like 90% engine. Like in this Despia deck, for example, aside from the 3 imperms, it's all engine. So having like a single negate doesn't really do a whole lot compared to something like in Master Duel in the TCG. So it's really not that big of a deal compared to other formats like those. So what I'm saying is that if you don't have Imperm, don't stress it. It's not really that important. If you don't have it, it's fine. There's plenty of alternatives that you could be playing. But I for sure will be playing this card in the foreseeable future in every single like expensive deck that I'm going to build, just because I have this sunk cost fallacy of me spending way too much money getting free copies of this card, and well, I might as well use it, right? Might as well not waste the money that I've spent. But yeah, thanks for watching. Tell me what you think. Do you agree with what I have talked about? If you have gotten your imperms, do you have like the same experience as I did? And if you don't have imperm, tell me if this video changed your mind on whether or not you want to get yourselves an imperm. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.